Good morning. My name is Joe Reingold, and this is for One Story at a Time Project Viva Shalom. I'm here interviewing Dr. Jaime Davidson, and today is Sunday, March 1st, 2020. Hello, Dr. Davidson. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Tell us a little bit about your family of origin, where they came from, where they lived.
Well, my mother came in 1940 from Hamburg, Germany, but she was born and raised in a small town in Poland called Wyszków. My father came a lot earlier, he was living with a family in France. Originally the family was also from Poland. And most of my family from my father's side, actually all of my family from my father's side migrated to Israel in the 20s and 30s. My father was the only one that came to Costa Rica.
Okay. How did he meet your mom?
Well, he was already working in Costa Rica in a small town. My oldest uncle from my mother's side was also, a migrant from Poland to Costa Rica. He went to Cuba, didn't like it, and then he migrated to Costa Rica to a town called Cartago. And my father, based on the visa that he got, had to work in agriculture initially. And he worked in a town not too far from that city. And they met, and I don't know the whole story, but the only thing I know is they married in 1942, early 1942, and that's the rest of the story.
Do you know why he picked Costa Rica? Was there a particular reason?
Yeah, there was a reason. The family he was living with in France had family in Costa Rica, and they offered him to go to Costa Rica because there were not enough Jewish boys, but there were enough Jewish girls. And he asked, well, but if I don't like it, how do I come back to Europe? And they said, don't worry, if you don't like it, we'll bring you back. Oh. And he went there, but apparently that shidduch didn't work out. And my mother came barely safe from Europe. 1940 was not a good year for Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. Right. How did they decide on Costa Rica? Do you know? Your mother's side?
No, because my oldest uncle was the first one. He went to Cuba because Cuba was open, and he learned in Cuba that Costa Rica was nicer, the weather was better, and then he decided to go there, and he loved it. And he actually brought. My mother was the last one that came, the youngest one, and not every one of my mother's relatives was safe. My grandmother and 3 other kids apparently perished during World War II.
So do you know if you have any family left in Europe at this point?
I tell you an interesting story. We reopened the cemetery in Wyszków, the Jewish cemetery. And it gave me the chills because during the opening, an older guy came and asked me, what was your family? And I told her who my family was. He says, I can tell you that your grandmother came back and she was not killed during the war, but we didn't know, and we lost contact, so we don't know really what happened.
Oh wow! But he knew. Wow.
He knew.
Interesting.
So it's it gave me the chills. We tried to find what my cousins and we went back a couple of times, but we couldn't get any information.
So where and when were you born? And tell us a little bit about your early years.
Okay. I was born in San Jose, Costa Rica, in January 15, 1945. It was a small Jewish community at that time. Mm-hmm. The majority of the Jews from Costa Rica were Polish, okay? All Ashkenazi Jews. I didn't have too much to learn early on the word. The community was very quiet on the Nazis and Hitler. They didn't want the kids to know too much. They didn't tell you any of the stories that were bad. And actually I grew up, I went only to public schools. and I will be honest with you, I never felt anti-Semitism. You know, I went, you know, I was the only Jewish kid in my elementary school. In my grade, there were two other kids in the community, from the community in high school, in elementary school. And then I went to college, to high school, you know, to another public school, and we were more Jewish kids in that school. And I never felt any, you know, any anti-Semitism. So I felt that Costa Rica was a great place. No army, you know, good education at that time, very safe. My father was involved with one of the political parties, you know, at that time, very close to one of the presidents, and you know, it was a nice time to grow up in Costa Rica.
What kind of things were you involved in, and your parents, what were they involved in, and was there anything to join in the Jewish community itself, even though it was very small?
Yeah, well, we were kosher at home, you know, we went to shul, you know, we have Shabbos dinners, the whole family from my mother's side, because there were at least 6 of them in Costa Rica, we have Passover together, the Seders, Rosh Hashanah, you know, break the fast. You know, my father went to shul, but he, you know, he was involved with the community. We raised money for Keren Kayemet, you know, so yeah, everybody was involved there for Israeli causes and for the Jewish community.
What were some of your favorite activities growing up?
Well, I was a kid that belonged to the Hanora Atzini, a very Zionist organization with the aim of migrating eventually to Israel. But to be honest with you, Costa Rica is a very safe country, very good to the Jewish community. We have, like I said before, we have people in government, you know. One of my cousins became the ambassador of Costa Rica to the United States. Yeah. Another cousin became the ambassador of Costa Rica to Italy. I was the, you know, consul of Costa Rica here in Dallas, honorary consul, because I couldn't actually take off time from my career to be a full-time consul for Texas. So the community is quite involved in politics, and you know, I didn't have to leave Costa Rica. I didn't have to migrate. It was not a good reason for me to come to the U.S. The reason I'm here is because I had opportunities, and I said, 1 year, talked to my wife, and you know, she is from Mexico. She wanted to go back to Mexico, and we said, well, this is neutral. Let's try 1 year, and here you have me 50 years later.
So you did make a decision to leave at some point, Costa Rica. So what did you do after high school?
I wanted to be a physician, and we didn't have a medical school. So I went to the American Embassy to see what the opportunities were for me to come to medical school here. And, you know, I got a small scholarship, but not enough for me to tell my father, because my mother died May of 1961. And I wanted to start the medical school in 1962. And I didn't want to be an economical burden to my father. So I went to the Mexican Embassy. You know, they told me to take some tests, and if I pass, my medical school will be free in the National University of Mexico. And I did. So I migrated to Mexico to go to medical school. As soon as I finished medical school, I went back to Costa Rica for 1 year. I did an internship there. I went back to Mexico because in Mexico you need to actually pay the government back working for a year in a small town. It's called social services. And I had a blast in that little town. You know,
where was it? Where were you?
The town is it's a difficult name. It's called Anenequilco, Morelos. And the only famous thing about that town is that Emiliano Zapata was born there. And when I arrived, it was quite interesting because I was greeted by the nurse, and she told me, you know, we have a curandero, you know, a witch doctor in town, who is the son of the mayor of another little town, and I recommend you to come in the morning and leave before dark. So it was quite an interesting year, but I made it, you know. I didn't have patients for about 2.5 months, except, you know, to give vaccines to children and some adults. And one night they called me and I went in and I saved a kid, and since then everybody came to see me and nobody couldn't there. So it was a very good experience.
And how long did you stay in Mexico?
I stayed in Mexico for that. I worked for the Olympics, for the 1968 Olympics, and after I finished that, I was able to leave, but I went back until another doctor came to the city, to a little town, because I didn't want to, now that the town was actually Western medicine and the people were coming to the health center, I didn't want to leave them without anybody. And interesting enough, I convinced another Jewish kid to come and replace me.
Oh, good. So then where did your journey take you?
It took me to Temple, Texas. I did an externship in Scott and White Hospital. You know, I then, you know, took the exams to be able to work in the United States. I went to Miami for a while, and then I came back to Temple, Texas to do my residency in internal medicine. I finished the residency there, and I knew I wanted to do endocrinology. I knew that from medical school for more than one reason, and during my residency, same thing, the endocrinologists grabbed me, they asked me to work with them. One of them moved to Indiana University, and then he asked me to come with him. And then I went to Indiana University to do my endocrinology. I met some people here from the medical school in one of the meetings. And to be honest with you, I accepted to go to Miami to work for a year. And then the offer from Dallas came. I accepted to go to Miami in December, and in February, I got an offer to come to Dallas. And I went to talk to the chief of endocrinology, and I said, you know, I would love to go and see what the offer is, but I already accepted Miami. And the guy says, son, you are in the United States. You're not any longer in Costa Rica. If you have an offer in the United States, you go and take a look.
Right.
So I called them and I said yes. They sent me a ticket. They picked me up. They offered me to be the chief of endocrinology at Methodist here, based on what I was accomplishing as a fellow. And I said I want it. But the people from Miami didn't want to let me go because I speak Spanish. The community Spanish there is important. But at the end, the head of my department convinced them to let me go because I had a signed contract. And here you have me 50 years later. No, 45 years later.
Besides your career, what else do you think drew you to Dallas?
Well, we met some friends, you know, initially here. They're from Israel. They were newcomers here. And when we were living in Temple, Texas, you know, we have our first son. They came for the bris. And a few days later, they have their son, and we came for their bris. And the rest is history. You know, we stay in touch with them. We're still very good friends. And, you know, the community here, I came here July 4th, 1974. I remember that day because we were moving to an apartment that this couple, you know, rented for us.
Okay.
And the furniture, we told them, I know, you know, we have the apartment, but we don't have where to sleep. And it was Mayflower. And I saw a truck of Mayflower in the apartment complex. And I waved to the guy, and I said, you know, by any chance you're looking for Davidson? He says, yes. And, you know, the same day we arrived, the furniture arrived.
You're lucky.
I was very lucky.
Yeah.
And I tell you, in Indianapolis, you know who helped me? Because we have to send the furniture, the little furniture we have, we send it.
Right.
So the Jewish people that we knew gave us chairs, a table, a bed. You know, Jewish friends of Indianapolis, we're still in touch with them as well.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Yeah.
And, you know, the other couple that gave us other things, you know, he was a PhD, and he may rest in peace, but they were wonderful people to us. So we came here, and, you know, in July, August 10 of that year, my father passed away. So it was a difficult time because, you know, my sister lived in Mexico. She married a Jewish guy from Mexico City, and I had to go back and leave Methodist Hospital unattended for about 2 weeks, you know, to take care of everything that happened.
Was he still in Costa Rica?
He was still in Costa Rica. And, you know, my plan was, because I talked to him and I said, Dad, you know, you mind, you know, I would love to come back to Costa Rica because that was the plan, but do you mind if I tried this 1 year? And then my plan was actually to bring him here. It never happened.
Yeah. What were your first impressions of Dallas then, and how has it changed now, since then?
Well, you know, when I came to Methodist and the medical school, you know, people were very warm. You know, the people at Methodist, you know, with the exception of one guy, everybody at Methodist was not a Jewish person. You know, there were Presbyterians, Baptists, you know, and everybody was excellent to me. They helped me left and right during the difficult times. You know, they really were behind me. So it was a great welcome. You know, because I had to say Kaddish, and I didn't know yet the community, so I went to Sherit, I went to Tiferet, I went to other synagogues, and I felt more comfortable in Tiferet. You know, they have minions in morning and afternoon.
Okay.
It was perfect because it was on the way to work. They had the minion at 6 in the morning or 6:15, and in the evening, depends on when. It was perfect because I wanted to say Kaddish the whole year. So, you know, we became members of Tiferet from that day on, and we're still members of Tiferet as of today. I became also very involved with the Jewish Community Center. You know, played racquetball, swim there, was the board of directors of the JCC, and you know, now you can see the JCC is a big place, growing, and I'm glad they're doing so well.
Are you involved in anything professionally or civically in Dallas besides Jewish activities?
Well, in Texas, I was actually the chair of the Texas Diabetes Council, which is part of the Texas Department of Health. You know, when President Bush was governor of the state, he asked me to be in higher education. I was a regent at Midwestern State University. And then when he was president, I served in the President's Council on Fitness and Sports. And I became very involved with the Texas Department of Health in many areas. I was an advisor. In the United States, I was also an advisor for the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. And I was with the NIH in the diabetes program.
It's wonderful.
So you can see that, you know, the big advantage of this country is, you know, the opportunities are there. If you work hard, no matter where you come from, you know, you feel that you're welcome, and they do welcome you, and they listen to you.
Have you thought about moving anywhere else?
Well, my kids live in Miami, both of them.
Okay. I was going to ask how your family has grown, so you
Yeah.
have, okay.
So, you know, sometimes we think about moving, but I tell you, our social network is so strong here. You know, our roots are here. You know, I've been in Dallas more than any place in the past. So it's difficult. And our kids, you know, they have their families and their network. They're doing well. So I think Dallas is it.
Okay. Well, we're happy for you to stay. If you can pinpoint something Can you tell us something you are extremely proud of in your life here?
Well, I've done many things. In addition to working at the medical school, have been in private practice at Medical City. I actually established an organization called Worldwide Diabetes. It's a non-for-profit initiative. I started it with a guy from the UK, Philip Home, and we did it because we felt that there was differences of healthcare between the United States and the rest of the world. And the initiative was mainly to bring everybody in the world to the same level of healthcare. And we have done programs everywhere in Latin America, in many Asian countries, in Western and Eastern Europe, in Asia. So, it grew from a small organization to a very important organization today. So those are things that, make me feel very good that I'm making contributions. In addition, I work very close to the ex-chief of diabetes, Itamar Raz at Hadassah. We do a lot of programs together in the past. I've been to Israel many times. I give lectures there. I actually give lectures at a hospital called, used to be Rothschild, Rothschild is now Bnei Zion, and I help them too. But this hospital is in Netanya. It's called Laniado Hospital. So I've been there to help them as well. So, I'm still very involved with the community, in medicine, and anytime I can help, I do.
What do you look forward to in your future?
Well, I want to continue working. I love what I do. I love to teach. I love to put programs together, and, I have a few hobbies, but I like to stay engaged in my profession.
Yeah. I know I mentioned this a little bit differently, but what other things are you involved in now, you and your wife, besides the synagogue and the JCC? Anything else that you dearly love or that you like doing or that you're involved in?
That is not medicine?
Right.
Well, I still help, in Costa Rica. There's a hospital that they have questions all the time, and they have me as an advisor. Also I teach at 2 universities outside the United States, one in Dominican Republic, which is the Ibero-American University. So, I try to go and help them, and I also teach the Masters of Diabetes at a university in Lima, Peru called Cayetano Heredia. So I'm very busy.
Yeah, that's okay.
And
in medicine.
Everything is related to medicine.
How did you, I know you said a while ago, you knew for sure early on that you wanted to do endocrinology. How did you decide that? Why did you pick that as your specialty?
When I was in medical school, in Mexico City, I was rotating in the endocrine division. I had 2 fabulous endocrinologists, and there was a strike from residents. Okay, so the chief of endocrinology asked me, Jaime, would you actually make rounds and present the cases for me? And I said, why not? This is a great opportunity for me. And I did, and he liked me, and he actually asked me to stay and work with him after I finished that rotation. And he wrote to my dad that, to let me stay in Mexico and work for him. And one of the plans was, when I finished, because Anna, my wife, is from Mexico, maybe go to Mexico, because he wanted me to go. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was in my fellowship, and I decided, the opportunity here was really good for me to learn. And I will tell you, in Mexico, I did feel a little more animosity towards Jewish people. I have one event in medical school that was quite shocking to me. When I was in medical school, I was in a group of 25 medical students that were chosen to be in a special group to help them teach in the second year and third year. So I was teaching pharmacology to other students. And one of the medical students was making noise, and I say, well, you know, if you really are not interested in the class, you know, let the other people actually learn. You know, you can leave. And he says, you know, I hate Jewish people. And then, you know, I said, well, please leave, and you can tell me that outside. And one day I saw him outside. You know, he never came back to my class. And he pulled a gun on me.
Oh my God.
And one of my friends that lives in Dallas, he's a physician here, an OBGYN. You know, he jumped, and thanks to him, I'm still here.
Oh my God.
So, you know, anti-Semitism is still there. Even though you don't think so, there's anti-Semitism in the United States. You know, you can see it growing up. You can see the white supremacists. And, you know, I think we as a community need to be confronting those people and be a little more vocal.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you know, but overall, my experience in Mexico was also pretty good.
Dr. Davidson, is there anything else you'd like to add that I haven't mentioned or we haven't talked about?
I think, you know, my trips to Israel as a physician, you know, have been wonderful. And I think people need to know that healthcare in Israel is different. It's not better or worse than here, but the research part of Israel in medicine, just amazing. You know, a small country like Israel can produce things that nobody thinks they can, like in other areas. Medicine is very advanced, and I wish that every Israeli will have access to all the discoveries and make, you know, the best that they can. But we're still far away from that, like we're here in the rest of the world.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.